is going on, everybody? Welcome in to the North End Podcast, episode 191. My name is Zach Graham, your host here in the North End, joined, as always, by my good buddy. He's on record as my best friend. His name is Ian Michaud, and we call him E, sitting here on a Sunday this week, and I'll keep it short and sweet. Happy birthday, my friend. Finally 21.
You finally got there. Yes, thank you. Had a great birthday. Played some darts with the boys last night, which is always a good time. Really enjoyed that, and had to get back to work today. Back down to business. 21 years old, ready to chat more soccer.
yeah, man. We just went through the whirlwind of a first week here in the official league offseason, so plenty to talk through here today. Obviously, we had our live stream on Monday, impromptu, Jassy Zardes getting bought out. So if you missed that, you can find that on our YouTube channel or in the podcast feed. You just got to scroll back one there and find that. It was about 30 minutes, so nothing crazy there. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about some rumors that have popped up over this week. Of course, everything that happened across the league with the expansion draft, re-entry, etc. And we've got the MLS SuperDraft coming up this week, So we will dive into some draft prospects as well, some academy updates, a little last business day as well. Busy episode ahead. Before we jump in to the rest of episode 191 here, just want to remind you all, listening or watching on the YouTube channel, that the best way to support the show is by downloading the audio version of our episodes wherever you get your podcasts. And typically where you get your podcast, you can toggle on auto downloads. If you do that, you can support the show going forward without having to think about it further. You can go the extra mile, rate and review, and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcast. And if you are watching on the YouTube channel, subscribe to the channel. It helps us grow the show, and you can hit the notification bell to know when a live stream pops up. Gonna be a couple this week, or a new episode goes live. And of course, on this episode, hit the thumbs up, like the video. Help us battle the YouTube algorithm overlords. Atone for your sins. Wash yourselves clean in the birthday of E. All right, Jassy Zardes, again, was bought out on Monday, or announced on Monday by Tom Bogert, then by the club. So the last thing I wanted to say here, E, outside of what we already spoke about on Monday's live stream, is Jassy posted a heartfelt goodbye across his social media accounts. He said, a heartfelt thank you. I didn't mean to use heartfelt. That's the word he used. A heartfelt thank you to Austin FC for the honor of representing this incredible club. To the staff, teammates, fans, and my family, your support and passion made every moment unforgettable. My goal will always be to inspire the next generation. So Jassy Zardes saying goodbye to everybody in the Austin FC universe. And man, we echo those sentiments. We love Jassy.
Yeah, I mean, just going to reiterate what I have reiterated plenty times on the live stream there, and whenever we've brought up G and how much we respect him. Dude's a class act through and through, and it just wasn't the right fit for us. And this is the part of the business that we don't like. You don't like losing guys that you really care about. But I wish G all the best moving forward. Hopefully, he's able to continue his career somewhere else, and appreciate him for his time and contributions to the club for some really memorable goals that will stick with me for my entire tenure here as a fan.
Well, I know our buddy Brian, the North End Pirate, one of the North End Pirates, posted the picture that you and I and Brian got to take with Jassy at one of those rain weather delayed games last year where he was out. So we caught him walking up to the box there. And the other thing that crossed my mind is when we got the opportunity to sit in one of those North End kind of box suites up there, and we saw somebody, I don't know if you remember, we saw somebody walking by with a Zardes jersey. Mm-hmm. We love Jassy, so we both hollered like, "Yo, Zardes, we love Zardes." Turns around, it's his wife. She's like, "Yeah, I do too." So yeah. I will always remember that as well. She was very nice to us when we were, showing love for the 9 shirt she had on there. But what quickly followed the Zardes news, Ian, kind of permeated the Austin FC week that was a rumor first heard from Tom Bogert. I believe it was on Thursday morning, right when free agency opened. So Tom Bogert was on the CBS, the Golasso network, I believe, talking MLS free agency. And he was talking about 3 deals that he, quote, likes headed in there. And those 3 were Jack Elliott to Chicago, Lalas Abubakar to FC Dallas, and Fafá Picault to Austin FC. And so then later that night, I listened to Soccer Wise, which is Bogert's podcast with David Goss. And he kind of said the same thing, but listening to him say it on his own podcast, it gave me like, for the NBA familiar listeners here will know, like it was kind of like Woj, like not spoiling a draft pick or a free agency signing, but, you know, saying, oh, this team is really eyeing this guy. You know, they're interested. They're following him closely. So what he said on Soccer Wise was, on a serious note, I like Chicago for Jack Elliott. I like Austin for Fafá Picault, and for Lalas Abubakar, I like Dallas. Those are 3 things that I like. Free agency doesn't open until 1 p.m., so I can't, you know, I just like these. And that was the quote. And so listening to that, to me, it was like, okay, like these are 3 deals that, while they haven't been confirmed yet, really feels like he knows something. Sure enough, on Saturday, we get the news Jack Elliott has signed with Chicago, so I'm going to pull the lever E. I think Tom Bogert doesn't miss.
It's true.
And so I think this deal is done, and it's just a matter of when it gets announced, when we get that green smoke. Fafá Picault to Austin. Your initial reaction?
You know, that one picked up steam pretty quickly. And like you said there, Bogert does not miss. So I am also pretty much confirmed that this is coming through the pipeline. We just got to get the numbers right and whatever else needs to go into that contract to bring him in. Initially, my response was probably pretty tepid about it, just because, you know, we had been gassing up that we were going to go make a big splash here at the 9, which meant for me, someone from across the way, across the pond. And then you look at someone like Fafá, who MLS veteran. You know, obviously we understand the speed that he possesses, which is something that we've been sorely lacking at the 9 position in particular. So as I went through it a little bit more, looked up his stats, looked up his information, everything, I got a little more warm to it. I'm still hoping that we have a larger signing at the 9 coming through at some point in time. But I think that this is a move that does upgrade us, not to the potential that we thought maybe with someone like, you know, Marvin Dukes coming over here, which we were really excited about. But it does upgrade us. And like you see with the Giassi buyout, we got 1-9 here with Rubio left. So we got to find some players here. And I do think that you can fill this out with Fafá and be excited about it.
Yeah. And I think, again, it's relative excitement, right? Kind of like you hinted at there, where like the first reaction is like, okay, but then you remember that we just bought out Giassi. So not only did we open up that salary cap space, but we opened up another senior roster slot. And I think that move made it much more likely that we were going to grab somebody in the free agency process here and not just be looking for those special roster slots. Because again, we only have so many international slots, only 2 vacant right now. And Fafá, like you mentioned, is a domestic player. And I also think he's more of a signing, not necessarily for the 9. Well, he can fill in there. I think he would be in the left wing mix. That's kind of his primary position over the last couple seasons. And he's bounced around, right? Like even just since we've been fans of Austin, was with Houston in 2021 and 2022, Nashville in 23, and then with Vancouver last season. 33 years old, right? 5'8", like 140, 150. So he's a smaller guy, but he's very, very fast still. That's one thing that has not waned, as he is, again, getting into his mid-30s now here. So I think some folks, the initial reaction was even more negative than you and I. And I don't know if I would classify ours as negative, but just a little bit underwhelmed, as we have prepared ourselves for a DP for U22s coming in, which we still, you know, those things still have to happen here this offseason. But I don't know, man, like looking at his stats, 14 goal contributions in just under 1,700 minutes last year. Just the 14 contributions alone in a vacuum would have led Austin FC last year. So like this guy, in terms of his counting stats, is still very, very productive. And compared to what we put out there on the pitch last year, you know, would have been an upgrade. I do think that he profiles more as a rotational guy, right? 29 appearances for Vancouver last year, just 18 of them starts. And I think that's a very similar number that we should expect to see once this signing is announced, because again, he can fit into the winger rotation. So if we're slotting him in on the left, we already know he's competing with CJ there, right? And we have made our desire known for a U22 winger. Maybe that winger is mixed in there as well. And Jader Obrian, of course, is not just going to be the backup to Buka week in and week out. He would also be in that mix to compete up top. So adding somebody like this, I think on paper, again, we have to have some depth. You have to have rotational starters, and that's what he profiles as to me. I think it raises the floor that we had last year. Like consider Fafá right now to be in the Ethan Finley slot. I think that's an upgrade.
Absolutely, that's an upgrade. And it, like we're going to see what number he comes in at, and that's going to be important for us. I understand why people are a bit upset about the fact that he's 33 years old. Given our track record, bringing in some older players, we wanted to get younger in this offseason. This isn't necessarily a move that hints at that. But like you said, rotational depth is something that we have consistently struggled to find here in Austin throughout our entire tenure with the team. I keep saying tenure for some reason. I don't understand. Maybe I want to be a teacher. So like you said, I'm right there with you. It's not the big shiny splash signing that everyone was anticipating, but getting him in here, having that rotational piece with an MLS veteran, there's worse things that could happen. So, and like you said there, not that it's saying much that he would have led our team in goal contributions last either, but he did have more than anyone on the team, and it's just a fact. So, I think I'll warm up to a little bit more. Let's see what number he comes in at. I know you were talking about like contract length before we jumped on here. And what were your thoughts on that again?
Yeah, so he was on $670K last year. So essentially the max cap hit last year. But given, again, if we are anywhere in the ballpark of the cap space that Roto is working with here this offseason, like even, again, putting in the blanket increases that we did during our mock offseason, freeing up the $1 million from Zardes now, like, I don't think my concern is about the salary here. My primary concern is the contract length. And again, we're talking about this. We are assuming this deal is done and just hammering out the details. They're deciding on when they're going to announce it. But if it's a 1+1, I don't think I care what he's getting paid because, again, it's a short-term deal. We can get out from under it next season. And with the special roster slots and the cap relief they provide, that we still think those moves are going to happen. Like, this doesn't change it. Those plans. And I think it's just the order of operations here that is a bit, again, it's not disappointing because if this was our fourth signing of the offseason and we already had the DP in here, we had a couple U22s or a TAM midfielder or what have you, those higher level signings, then I think we would be even more excited about this addition to be like, oh, look, we already got our pieces. We got our guys, the big names, or rather the special roster slot players. And now we also add Fafá to the mix, right? I think it's the order of operations here is what is maybe keeping us overall as a fan base a little bit muted. And of course, I know there are going to be people like getting back to what we were talking about with just the age and everything, like, and that could be the case. And Fafá could come here and he could hit that age cliff, right? That could absolutely happen. But we have not seen it yet. So I'm not going to say that he's going to come in here and do that. And look, the Golden Boot winner is 34 last year. So the age is just a number at this point. And once you're over 30, are you more likely to be on the back end of the career and have that drop off at some point and fairly quickly? Yes, of course, you're more likely to do that. But we don't have any evidence of that on paper with Fafá last year. And we certainly didn't to the eye test because we know he was giving us fits. I think they had a PK and a goal called back because of a handball, and then they VAR'd. Alex Ring, we kind of said, thinking back to that match recap, that one could have gone either way. And I don't know about you, but I've always kind of had a healthy fear of Fafá Picault because I feel like he always scores on us. He actually doesn't. He got 3 on us with Houston in the expansion season, has not scored against us since. So I think I've just got a little bit of like Copa Tejas PTSD with Fafá here. But we would certainly take more Fafá goals at Q2 and elsewhere next season as long as he's here in the Verde and Black.
Yeah, I agree that his play in that Vancouver matchup with us is something that has stuck with me throughout this season here, because he was giving us fits, and like you saw the speed on full display when we played them. And like now, like you said, if you have him over there on that left wing, you pair him with Buka, that's some real dangerous speed. Add hot air into that mix as well. There's plenty of guys who can get up and down the field when you got those three really running. If we can keep them fresh by keeping them rotated, I like it. Do you think there's anything to the fact that, like you mentioned, he's bounced around quite a bit?
Yeah.
You know, no, I'm not super in tune with Fafá news or anything like that, but
Right.
I haven't heard any sort of thing like, he was an issue in the locker room, or, had some falling out with coaches or whatever. Do you think there's anything to that he's been on a couple clubs, or he's just a classic case of MLS journeyman who's, finds a way?
Again, it could be some of the former. I'm not in tune with Fafá's entire career, right? Like, I'm not in the Whitecaps Reddit, or like, the closest thing to it is watching Houston fans maybe talk about him in 21 and 22. But like, I don't think they had anything bad to say about him, at least from his performance. Cause like his 2 years with the Dynamo, 18 goals, 8 assists in 61 games. Like that's pretty good for a rotational starter. And to me, I think the trades and the short contracts, what have you, like, I think that's just because he's been 30, 31, 32, right? And so, like, teams, like I expect this to be a 1+1. Because why would we tie ourselves unless it's just such a low number? And that's maybe one of the last things I wanted to bring up. Going back to the hypothesis I've had a couple times this offseason, relating to how Roto got Matt Bersano on the supplemental roster last season. I don't think it's very likely that Fafá would go from $670K to like 220. I believe 225 is like the number where we can potentially, where we think we can buy guys down with allocation money from the senior to the supplemental roster, a la Bersano last year. But we also know Stephen Cleveland, as long as he doesn't increase too much with that contract or that cap hit, he's one of the guys that profiles that we could do that with. So again, you could sign Fafá, you could be taking up a senior slot, but you could also free one up with that allocation money. That's just something that I'm looking out for. And again, we probably will not know until the roster profiles come out in April or what have you. But we also, we might be tipped off if we sign more players than senior roster slots that we have allocated. That would obviously be the last puzzle piece. Would be like, okay, somebody is on the supplemental roster here. So that's just something else that I have my eye on over the next couple months. Yeah,
I'm with you. At this point, it just feels like we're waiting for the green smoke to pop.
Yeah. And again, born in the U.S., does play for Haiti, but will not take up an international slot. So still got to see what the length is. Still got to see what the salary is in the spring to get the full picture on it. But I am encouraged in terms of, we were probably going to get a guy in free agency now, and this is somebody that I think can contribute and is fitting into the mold of attacking player that Roto has been amassing here on the wings.
Yeah.
Because speed, Buka, hotter, now Fafá. CJ is not slow, right? Fafa's Instagram name, is Fafá Gazelle Pico, right? So, like, the guy is known for his speed, and so the counterattacking, maybe a counter pressing, high pressing type of team here with Coach Estevez and in Roto's vision. I don't know, man. Again, I think the signing makes sense to me, and we're just kind of waiting for the details.
Yeah, I'm with you. I want to see how Nico is going to utilize all this speed that we have. We had some trouble getting Buka into space last year, so I want to see what this kind of looks like, and I like how you're profiling that a bit more of a high pressing team potentially, or be able to hit you on a quick counter. So yeah, I'm getting more excited.
All right, then we get a rumor on, I believe, Saturday morning, and shout out to our friends at We Are Austin TV, who I believe were the first ones to kind of draw everybody's attention to an Owen Wolff rumor coming, I believe, out of France, if I'm not mistaken. According to Urgent Story, Stade Brestois, that's my best my best swing there, is showing interest in Owen Wolff. Now, this is a translated piece of the article. You can see in there, right, in the third paragraph, known for his skills as a Smuer, Owen Wolff is perceived as a promising young talent in the United States. The important things from this rumor, from this article, is that this club in Europe interested in Owen Wolff. The number that is bandied about is $2 million for a transfer fee. And the thing that kind of raised my eyebrow, in addition to that number, is that in this article, it says that Owen Wolff is under contract with Austin until December 2025, which is his old contract.
Yeah.
Right? We have him now under contract through 2027. So I'm a little bit hesitant here in terms of this coming to fruition. I don't think this doesn't read to me like some of the other rumors we have come across where like this doesn't make a ton of sense to me. A sale absolutely would.
Mm-hmm.
$2 million to me feels like selling low. And again, I just think it's questionable given the article that has outdated information in it. What are your thoughts at seeing this come across this weekend?
I mean, on one hand, this is what you want to see with these younger guys that we have. We want to be able to develop them a little bit and then move them on. And then on the other hand, it's something that we see quite a bit. Rumors swirling around. I would imagine that, like as they mentioned here, has attracted the attention of several football observers. So like there could be
AI written.
Yeah, there could be there could be folks looking at him, and we expect that to be happening. I'm not sure if this is going to be something that comes to fruition, like you mentioned there, but I did like the plan that you kind of outlined before we jumped on here to maximize your GAM. And that number comes in at 3 million, correct?
Yeah, so it's like I think it's 3 million and some change. It might be right on the number, but with the new transfer rules relating to allocation money, like that is the maximum number of transfer fees that you can convert into general allocation money every season. And so to me, again, I think we're all kind of under the impression that right now the two most likely potential outbound sales from Austin would be Owen Wolff and Danny Pereira. And I think, to me, again, I think 2 million right now for Owen Wolff would be selling low. And to me, I think it makes a lot of sense in our perfect world, right? Like there's no way to know if this could ever come to fruition until it happens. But ideally, you sell one of those guys for 3 million plus, 3 million at a baseline, because you make that one sale, you maximize the allocation money you can convert from that transfer fee in one season. Therefore, expanding your salary cap to the maximum level each of those years that you can under the rules. And then the next year you do the same thing with the other guy. Again, in the dream world where everything is going Austin FC's way, that's what happens. So again, not surprised to see rumors about Owen Wolff having interest like that. This is not the first time we've heard something like this, but in terms of, is it the right time? Is it the right number? For me, from my fan perspective, no and no.
I think I'm there with you on the no as well. Owen is to me one of the most intriguing players that we have going into next season. If you're looking at storylines, if you're looking at narratives and everything like that, obviously floating around at the top of the list is probably Seba. Want to see how he responds from a difficult season and how he's going to make some changes with the new coaching staff in here. But I think Owen is right there in that mix. I am very interested to see how he looks next year without the looming "my dad's the coach" hanging over his head every single time he steps out there on the pitch. So I really want to see what he has and what this season is going to look like and how Nico is going to use him, because he is going to be a very important rotational piece that we're going to have in this lineup. So he's one of the most interesting players I have going forward next year, someone I'm going to be really keeping an eye on. And I hope this doesn't come to fruition right now. Selling him on later on, I'm okay with that.
Yeah. And again, like if it happened now and it's a number, then that means Roto feels very comfortable with him, that he doesn't think he's likely to get a better offer down the road. Because like to what you just said, we are very, very thin in the midfield right now. We are thinking additions, not subtractions. And if you did subtract Owen Wolff, like, can you bring in guys of higher caliber talent? Absolutely. Right. But he also is not taking up any of our salary cap because he's a homegrown designation. We don't have a lot of those. And again, I think like that's why it's not the time for me, is because we do not have the ability to replace that right now. And even if we do sell him on, right, then the calculus changes on, how much cap space do we really have? because then it would look a lot less rosy than it does right now in terms of that available space. So we'll keep our eye on that. But again, I don't foresee that happening this year.
I mean, absolutely. And you think like if that did come to pass and everything, and we do move on from him, that we would have a plan in place, a player ready to come in, because like you said, we need bodies in that midfield.
Yeah. I mean, multiple players, right?
Yeah.
Because we already need bodies. And if you lose another, whew. On the staff side of things, we talked about Coach Terry Boss, right? We're waiting on any other assistant coaches to depart or maybe be announced as new members of Nico's staff. But this week, I believe it was Marcel Sanchez that reported this first, at least that I saw. But Dave Tenney is out as high performance director because, per Atlanta United's press release, he has taken the same job with Atlanta. So he reunites with Garth Lagerwey there in Atlanta. Both of those guys work together in Seattle in years past. And so, I mean, Austin won medical staff of the year at least once over these first 4 years. And I think it was in 23 when we kind of had our most injured season, because 22 and 24, man, we had some pretty good injury luck, all things considered. So I think with how well regarded Tenney was in not just the United States soccer space, but I think United States as a whole, if I recall correctly, he's also worked with some NBA teams. Maybe I'm getting my front office names mixed up here, but it feels like the staff hires overall, coaching staff, high performance, what have you, like those are also going to come fast and furious once they begin, or once they're announced, right? Maybe we already have some people hired and in-house getting to work, but we haven't heard about them yet.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like there's a lot of pieces being moved around right now, and like you said, we're going to have to fill out the rest of the staff as well. So that's something that we're going to be keeping an eye on. I don't know if it's necessarily going to warrant a live stream, bringing in a head trainer or something along those lines, or a medical staff, but you'll be able to get the news here at North End.
All right, so running through some of the off-season processes that we had this week. Expansion draft on Tuesday, or on Wednesday night, rather late on Wednesday night, like rather uneventful by the time we got there. But we got the list on Tuesday, of course, of who was and who was not protected by Austin going into this. And I don't think we really had any surprises. I think one thing that did stick out, we did protect CJ Fodre, because we had the questions on whether or not CJ was going to be protected because of his Generation Adidas status, but we know the team site said that he was in slots 25 through 28. MLS rules said you got to be in 21 through 24. So then when the list comes out and he is protected, you count the other guys that were protected. He was one of the 12. So I think that is somewhat notable that we protected CJ over Stefan Cleveland, Jimmy Farkalin, which not surprising to me there, Jean Kolmanich, Leo Weissman, and Diego Rubio was left out there unprotected, who just signed a contract extension. Again, I do think Rodolfo Borrell was confident that none of these guys were going to get taken based on how San Diego operated when all was said and done. But again, it was notable to me that we protected number 19 over guys like Rubio, over guys like Kolmanich, Cleveland, Weiss, and then, again, Jimmy. Yeah. I think that was maybe the easiest one to, no offense to Jimmy, that was the easiest one to know he was going to be unprotected, though.
Yeah, I don't think it's nothing, for sure. And that was something that we were debating for quite a bit there, and we potentially saw an avenue for them to be interested in picking up CJ and getting him out there and having him be back home and everything and part of this team moving forward. So I think it was notable that he was left off of that list. And then, no surprises really outside of that with the players who were available and the fact that they all got passed up.
Yeah. And so San Diego, 10 p.m. Central on Wednesday, finally gets all the picks in, and they come in a flurry in 2 minutes, maybe less. First, they took, and I'm just going to say this how I want to because it's not the toughest name that I've ever seen, but Heine Gickling Bruceff. Look, Heine. That's Heine to me. So they take Heine Bruceff from Orlando. There's a 20-year-old midfielder who's on a U22 deal. So a high upside swing there, plucking him from Orlando City. Orlando has had a player taken in each of the last 3 expansion drafts now. Second, Hamidi Diop from Charlotte can play left back and center back. was the first pick in the 2023 MLS SuperDraft, spent last season on loan in Serbia. So they bring Jop from the East Coast to the West Coast. Then third, Jasper Lafelsen, 27-year-old fullback. They get him from Colorado. He had come to the Rapids, I believe, last season by way of RSL. He's the former teammate at Pitt of Jackson Valti and Valentin Noel. So little Austin FC connection there for Lafelsen. And then with their final two picks, similar to how Austin FC did with Kamal Miller, picking him and then trading him for Gam and a pick, they took Jose Kajima from St. Louis, traded him to DC United for $400K in Gam. He was the 17th pick last season. That was expensive in my eyes. And then fifth, Thiago Andrade from NYCFC, and then traded him to Toronto for the 9th pick in Friday's draft and $250K in GAM with a sell-on percentage. Andrade was on loan in China last season, was part of NYCFC's 2021 MLS Cup winning team. So he moves north of the border to Toronto, and that was the San Diego expansion draft. Whole lot of nothing.
Yeah, that's I was reading a good article that Bogert had put out about that, and just kind of like, you know, how these teams approach this, and like some teams putting out guys who are actually like really high quality players, but you don't want to go take one of those DPs, so you kind of like do this. It's an interesting process. Obviously something that didn't get a lot of attention, and I obviously was not paying attention to it whenever it came across at 10 o'clock at night or whatever, like you said, like that. So you know, I hope they suck.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll know when we take on that expansion side this week. But reentry stage 1, that happened on Friday. And just a refresher, reentry is the players who are 22 years or older with at least 1 year of MLS experience, who are without contracts or bona fide offers, and of course don't qualify for MLS free agency. And again, this is typically a very quiet process. It was loud for us last year, going up to grab Hader Obrian, but there were 3 players taken in stage 1 of the reentry process. Stage 2 will be on Thursday of this week. Austin passed at 11, but Real Salt Lake took forward Forster Ajago from Nashville at 18. Familiar name here, Minnesota United takes center back Kip Keller at 24, and San Diego FC with the last pick took goalkeeper Jacob Jackson from San Jose. So Kippy, 3rd team in 3 years. But I mean, out of those names, I don't know the other two. But again, like I still have a little bit of belief in Kip Keller. If you can pick him up and keep him on your supplemental roster, I think that's a fine move by Minnesota. And again, it's the only one that really made me think twice about even talking about this.
Yeah, I mean, he's had a rough start to his MLS career. You know, it's been a rocky start for him, but that doesn't mean that he's going to be written off completely. So I still wish Kippy well.
So, like I mentioned, schedule release is expected Tuesday or Wednesday of this week. And yeah, very, very excited for that. So, of course, as we do here in the North End, we will have a live stream when that schedule drops, 30 minutes, maybe an hour, depending on potential work meetings we're in, whenever that gets released. But we will be live talking the schedule. But before we see it here, so on Sunday, one question I have just that I'm interested to see, will we open on the road? Because, of course, the expansion season, we play our first, I think, 8 games on the road with COVID and Q2 still being finished up in terms of the construction there. But in the 3 seasons since, we open at home against Cincinnati in 2022. We open at home against expansion St. Louis in 23, and of course against Minnesota this past season. So it feels like we're due to start on the road, which I don't want. I like having opening day here in Austin. But so that's something I'm looking for. And then I think, to me, what should be on everybody's mind, number 1 desire should be Inter Miami at Austin FC. That's what I want to see.
Absolutely. I'm super excited for this release. Can't wait to see what this schedule looks like for us. We can think about it too much, dive into it too much, look at some stretches that we think are going to be challenging, or some stretches that I think we're really going to be able to succeed with. So I'm really looking forward to this getting dropped. And yes, bring us Messi. Do it. I think we had some debate last night that there was no way we would sell these tickets even.
We were out there playing darts, talking. So, like, I think just the decision is, like, if that game comes, especially early in the year, season ticket holders are probably, especially in the cheaper seats, like I think the only cheaper seats than where we are in the North End is the supporter section. But like you can probably flip your entire season ticket payment for that game. And I don't know, man. Right now, I think, like you said, both of us came down on no way. We're going to go watch the GOAT.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's another thing, too. Like, no matter where Austin FC's 34-game regular season schedule falls, MLS All-Star Game in Austin next year. So that's another thing that we can just look forward to overall. And you would think that is going to be our guaranteed chance to see Messi as long as he stays healthy, would be here in Austin then. But again, I want to see the real game. Against our guys. I think my other desire too, now that we have 30 teams, 15 in each conference, 2 games each against Houston and Dallas. We just get just a square. Everybody plays the 4 games. That's Copa Tejas. We don't have one team playing 6, one team playing 5, or one team getting more home games than the other 2 and ultimately winning, Dallas last year. So I'm looking forward to, again, unless something crazy happens, I don't know why it wouldn't be home and home for every Western Conference team this year.
No, that needs to be cleaned up, like you said. You can't be having the Copa Tejas with a adjusted schedule and teams get multiple home. It just doesn't make any sense. So yes, I'm absolutely looking forward to that as well, which I think will be done. It will be handled now that we're evened out. Yeah,
most important trophy in the world. Friday, MLS SuperDraft. So Austin has the 12th pick in the first round, 12th in the second and third rounds too. So we have 12, 42, and 72 overall heading into Friday. And so we've talked about before, like in the mock-off season, right? I think you and I were split. I said I wanted a forward. I think you said center back also intrigued you as a position that we could potentially add a young player here in the draft. I have just scouted. Again, I went during my jaunt through these prospects. I just went with forwards. I went with my idea. And so I've got a number of forwards here where, like, I could sit here for over an hour and talk about these guys, and we could watch clips and we could really compare and contrast. But I just want to read these names, a couple, stat lines, and maybe why I think they are or aren't likely to be selected by Austin. Again, it's probably most likely that Roto is going to try to shop this pick for some amount of GAM, but assuming we make the pick. And I kind of want us to try to grab one of these guys because, again, I can get overly excited about some of these guys. And I have coined my guy, and we'll talk about him last on this list. So first, the guy I want to talk about, and this is maybe the most talented, most MLS-ready forward in this class from what I can gather. Emil Jääskeläinen. He's playing his senior season at Akron. He spent his first 3 seasons, collegiate seasons, at Long Island. 23 goals and 8 assists in 21 games this season.
Ooh. With
Akron. 43 goals and 14 assists across his 3 seasons at Long Island. So Jääskeläinen was actually born in England. And I think you get where this is going. I don't think that we are going to be able to, even if Jääskeläinen fell to 12, I just feel like we're not going to be able to use an international slot. So some of these guys who are internationals, like maybe they are close. Maybe they're in the process of getting a green card or what have. Like Jimmy got a green card. He was in college for a couple years, right? He's born in Liberia. So like, I don't think it's out of the question that these guys could be fast tracked to something like that. Or maybe they already have one. I don't know, how frequent, those collegiate players can get green cards in that permanent residency. But unless he does have one, and I just haven't seen anything about that, the 6'3" striker from Akron, Emil Jääskeläinen, feels like just kind of out of reach for us, given our international slot situation. I think even if we had them to spare, it still feels unlikely. It doesn't feel like it's a great use of an international slot to grab any of these guys, especially somebody who's going to be available at 12. Like Danny Pereira, absolutely. But we're not picking in the top. We're not the top pick. We're not even in the top 5 here. So again, it seems unlikely. But another fun fact about Jääskeläinen, his father, who is from Finland, played as a goalkeeper in the Premier League for 14 seasons with Bolton and West Ham.
Nice.
So you got the Premier League genes.
Yeah. And it's just so hard to gauge these guys. And like you mentioned, there having that international designation just has to hurt your draft value, your stock there. So I don't foresee anyone coming in on an international slot, and I would be relatively upset about it, I think.
Yeah.
And unless we found some sort of absolute gem stud at the 12th pick, which again I think is unlikely.
Yeah, and again, like if we see one of these internationals get picked, like it could be just like Nate Jones last year. It could be for a trade to somewhere else.
Yeah.
Or if we keep him, then maybe that I would assume then that kid would be either has a green card or is going to get one. So I lumped in this other striker here, Olfor Bjornsson. As you can imagine, requires an international slot. Bjornsson is Icelandic, 6'3", 187, sophomore at Duke. He's got 23 goals and 7 assists in 37 career games for the Blue Devils. He was a Herman Trophy semifinalist as a 21-year-old sophomore here this season for Duke. And again, Herman Trophy is essentially the Heisman Trophy here for college soccer. And Bjornsson, from what I can find, can also play both wings. So again, international slot doesn't seem likely, but a little bit of a younger prospect, not the youngest on my list here. But Bjornsson would be somebody I'd be excited about if he ended up having his name called at 12.
Okay. Good name.
Alex Harris. I know you would like that one. Alex Harris. You can imagine this is an American. Alex Harris, sophomore at Cornell. 5'11", 150. So a little undersized in terms of your traditional striker. 19 goals and 5 assists in just 19 games this season. Was the Ivy League Offensive Player of the Year. 12 goals, 4 assists in just 15 games as a freshman. He was Ivy League Freshman of the Year, unsurprisingly. He can also play, and this is a little bit, this makes more sense as a 5'11 guy, can play on either wing as well. And I did read something that suggested he could stay at Cornell one more year to get his degree. I believe he was like an all-state tennis player. He was a 4.0 GP. I mean, Cornell, right? Mm-hmm. So like, could stay one more year to get his degree. And per the new rules as of last year, we can draft these young guys and stash them. So if Alex Harris falls all the way there, like I would be fine taking that kid, letting him go back, get his degree from Cornell, and then see what he can do, after that year, because we could have him as one of those off-roster assets that you see some of these other teams have, and not take on his cap hit and not have to worry about it. And he can go to school and keep being a brainiac and keep banging in goals there in the Ivy League. I mean, again, like this kid has 31 goals in 34 games in his career. Like he can score it.
Yeah, absolutely. Of the 3 names that you've brought up thus far, this would be the option for me that makes the most sense and the easiest to fit in.
Yeah. So I lumped in his teammate here, who's a senior, Alune Ka, 6'1", 165-pound forward, just 8 goals and 3 assists in the 19 games for Cornell this season. But there's very little that comes out of the MLS Combine, especially while it is happening. And again, that was Wednesday to Saturday of this week. But of the few things that trickled out, Ka was getting some hype, I think, for his speed and athleticism. It was noted by one draft insider, for lack of a better term, that there was only like 5 players that ran a sub 5 40-meter dash, right? So it's not the 40 yards, so we don't have to be so alarmed, because I initially read that as 40-yard dash, and I was like, holy shit, this class is cooked.
Yeah.
Like, Cam Hayward, like 6'3", 300 pounds, runs a sub 5. But so Ka, again, I believe was the fastest player at the Combine, and born in Texas. So I just wanted to get him on the list there because he was invited to the Combine. He would not require an international slot. And thinking about Fafá and Buka and Obi and CJ, speedy athletic wing, like I could see this making some sense.
I could see that making some sense for us as well.
All right, now let's talk again, the Generation Adidas class. Okay. Just freshmen now with the new rules where you can go back and draft and stash guys can return to school. So freshman from Wisconsin, Dean Boltz, Boltz. I would love to have a Bolts kit. 6'2", 170, again, freshman from Wisconsin. I just think he could be in the Generation Adidas class. Again, we know the benefits of those. Keeps your draft asset on the supplemental roster for 3 seasons or the length of the contract if it is shorter, like a Kip Keller. But again, stashing a guy that's super young, Generation Adidas, you get the salary cap benefits of that. 10 goals and 4 assists as a freshman in 15 games. If he's GA, because he is domestic, I don't think he lasts to 12. But if, again, GA guys last to 12, like CJ, like we jumped up to grab CJ 2 years ago, I would be for that.
Yeah, I would be for that as well. Obviously, I'm gonna have to do what everyone's gonna have to do here and take a look at all these guys in a little bit more depth to understand what we're looking at. But it's just so hard to predict this draft. And like you said, we could be trading out of this to get out of these spots.
Look, the more time we spend on it, the more likely it is that none of this happens. So one more player, getting back to the upperclassmen here before we get into my guy, Matthew Rue, 5'10", 155, junior at Notre Dame. He was the ACC Offensive Player of the Year this season and first team in the ACC in 2024 and 2023 with his 14 goals, 4 assists in his 17 games this season. Again, I don't like this one as much just from the measurables, because what I'm looking at here, and you'll see it with my guy in a second, I'm looking for true striker, size, speed combo, a guy that can come in and contribute right away. And so without further ado, here's my guy for this season. Let's bring up some highlights on the screen. Give us Alec Hughes. I don't know if you can hear that music, but I can. I just muted it. Here's some Alec Hughes highlights on the screen. Let's talk about Mr. Hughes. He is a senior at UMass. He's 6'4", 185. You talk about Fafá being a gazelle, at least at the collegiate level. Give me Alec Hughes, man. 51 goals and 8 assists in 87 career games. In his 41 games as a junior and a senior, 32 goals, 2 assists. And again, that's the one thing you note, I think, statistically of these guys that I have been naming off. A lot of those other guys come with goals and they also come with assists. Nah, Alec Hughes, goal scorer, right? Only 8 assists in the 87 career games. He was the A10 Player of the Year as a junior. He was the standalone A10 Player of the Year as a senior this year. And man, shout out to our boy Logan Okwah. Alec Hughes is somebody he was on last year in the draft process. Hughes went back to school. As you can imagine, Logan doesn't like him any less this year. So I have to give him some credit here for putting me on to Hughes first. But I am in lockstep here. Of the highlights that I watched of these guys, Alec Hughes is the one that gets me most excited. This is who I'm locked in on. This is the honorary Stephen Anorgiampi Award of 2024 goes to Alec Hughes. This is my guy. This is who I will be screaming for at 12 if he is on the board. And look, I can dream.
Hey, I like it. I was going to ask you if you got any input from Logan on this, because I know that he is probably the aforementioned expert at watching the combine here for
He's
these
like
guys.
Our draft scout.
Yeah. I love the size. You know what I mean? I love the size. Absolutely. That's the profile that I would want as well. Large striker, true 9, goal scorer, as you mentioned there. He looks polished, clean with the ball. Obviously, we're looking at highlights, so everything looks really good. But I will also anoint him the Stephen Anorgiampi award.
The honorary Stephen Anorgiampi Award. 2024.
It's for Alec Hughes here, man. So I like this, man, and I hope you're right about it.
Yeah, it would certainly be fun to see that come through. But so again, this is the guy I'm getting way too excited for. And again, speaking of live streams, right? It is not just the schedule live stream on Tuesday or Wednesday, but we will be live Friday immediately after Austin makes the pick, going through whoever we grab in more depth, watching some highlights and the like. And just like with Nate Jones last year, maybe he gets traded afterwards, but we'll worry about that when the time comes. So MLS SuperDraft this Friday, and I believe it is 2 p.m. Let me double check. Yes, 2 p.m. Central, MLS SuperDraft. So tune in for that on Friday.
Beauty.
All right. Let's see. Oh, for the first time in a while,
Come on down to Farmer Field where the champions play. Get ready for the game. It's last business day.
Been a while since we heard that tune. Gets me pumped up, ready for another FCTO season. But this is a sad last business day, because as we expected, right, we are starting to get the departures, the farewell messages from Austin FC2 as well. So first, our boy Steve Louis-Jean says goodbye, and then shortly after, his new club, Chattanooga FC. So he's going from Western Conference to Eastern Conference, staying in MLS Next Pro. But Steve Louis-Jean says his goodbye to Austin, signs with Chattanooga FC in the same league, different conference. So look, we don't play the other conference, so good luck to Steve going forward. I always really enjoyed watching him play, again, coming kind of out of complete obscurity to us on the amateur deal at first and then getting his pro deal with FCTO. And I always thought he was very, very solid when he was out there, and played a significant role in the championship season back in 2023. So best of luck, of course, until we see you in the MLS Next Pro Cup next fall. So good luck to Steve.
Yeah, man, a fun player to watch. And like you said, something that he should really be proud of, coming out of basically nowhere, securing this new contract. So I'm very, very happy for him, and I wish him well.
Yeah. And then this one's certainly more impactful, I think, overall to the club. Alonso Ramirez, unsurprisingly, at the end of his loan, says goodbye to Austin FC, says goodbye to Austin. And again, I think it probably came down to, I would imagine, the fact that, number one, he was on loan, so who knows what the purchase option was, right? Having to allocate first team funds to that, probably never something that Roto was never going to do.
Yeah.
Then you imagine international slot, right? Mexican national. So both of those things, or one or the other, did not come to pass. So Alonso, wore the armband plenty this year, right? And thanks to Alonso, man, and not just from a second team perspective. When he came on for the limited minutes that he had with the first team, he more than held his own and helped us get through some really tough moments in the middle of the season, including, I believe, that Minnesota match where we were up a man, but holding on for dear life on the road. So shout out to Alonso. He'll be missed at both levels, at least for me.
Yeah, this one really sucked for me. I was a huge fan of his game, huge fan of what he brought to FCTO, and like you said, his limited time there with the first team. So this one hurts, but again, the writing was on the wall with this when you saw the loan agreement and everything like that, and the fact that he'd be taking up an international. So I wish him well as well. A lot of well wishes going out today.
Yeah, well, it's that time of year. Let's close it out with an Academy update. We talked last week about the first match from the MLS Next Fest out there in California from the U18s, right? Had the 3-1 win to begin their slate. And we talked about these games. There was no group stage or knockout. It's just a showcase, right? In all three of these matches that the 18s and the 16s played go towards their regular season records. So started off the 18s with the 3-1 win. They then took on Inter Miami's U19s. 2-0 victory. Goals from Joe Arena and David Santos. And then they close out their next fest with a 1-0 shutout victory over CF Montreal. The lone goal, the winner, scored by Gavin Wolff. So you get a Reina goal, a Wolff goal out there in California. A 3-0 weekend for the U18s. I saw one account or website outlet, what have you. I forget the name off the top of my head, but had our U18s ranked 4th in MLS Next. So again, that's what a 3-0 showcase can do for you. Only conceding one goal. So our guy Nico Aristizabal, I believe is how you say his last name. Not only a fantastic standout performance from him on a national stage once again. Of course, he was the U15's goalkeeper when they won the GA Cup. I believe I saw that Nico was called up to the U17s for, I want to say Puerto Rico or Costa Rica. I apologize, Nico, for not knowing the country of origin there, but going out to practice with his national team, the youth national team, for the CONCACAF qualifiers. So pretty good month for Nico.
Yeah, absolutely. Love to see it. Good on you, boys.
U16s took on San Jose first. The 4-0 win over San Jose to open their MLS Next Fest. You had a brace from Christian, and you had a brace from Nico. So 2 goal scorers getting on the board there twice to open up their Next Fest slate. They then beat Connecticut United FC 2-1. You got a brace from Lucas. And then you close out with the 2-1 loss to the Sounders U16s. We did get our goal from Alvaro there. So a 2-1 Next Fest for the U16s, which winning record, we will take it. Congrats to the guys out there at the Next Fest. And I have, as I've been rambling about these scores here, Nico, Puerto Rican. So going out there, Puerto Rican U17s. Good luck to Nico.
Absolutely.
12s, 13s, and 14s in action this weekend. Back here at home in the El Arbolito Cup. Haven't seen those results yet. Any of the championship games that we may have participated in were taking place today. So we'll cover those results next week.
All right.
Anything else for you, E, before we shut it down here on episode 191?
Oh, no, that was a good one, man. Had a lot of info there.
Yeah, a lot of info kind of bouncing around. And look, another busy week ahead, right? So you listen to this episode. Hopefully it's before Tuesday or Wednesday, but if not, you can go back, listen to that schedule release live stream. So we'll be live Tuesday or Wednesday. You see that schedule release drop, 30 minutes to an hour later, you come over to the YouTube channel, you check out the live stream. And of course, that'll be posted in audio format as well. But come, in between meetings at work, what have you, load it up, jump in the live chat, join in, read, and react to the schedule along with us. And then on Friday, the Super Draft live stream, right after the 12th pick is made by Austin FC, we'll go live here on the channel to break down the pick. And that'll do it for us here. Of course, we'll be back next Sunday, too, with your regularly scheduled North End podcast. So another busy, exciting week ahead. Maybe some Fafá green smoke in there as well. We'll see what comes to pass. Enjoy the beginning of your week, everybody. We'll do the same, and we'll see it for the schedule release live stream here in the early parts of the week. Until then, he's E, and I'm Zach. Vamos Austin FC, everybody. Goodbye.